Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Politdigm podcast. And this is episode 2 of said podcast. And today I'm joined by my co host, Alpha.
Hello there.
And I, of course, am Red. And today we are going to talk about a bunch of stuff. So, this is our second podcast, or the second episode of the podcast. And the last one should also be out on the same day that this one is out. And so this one is going to be slightly different because this one is going to be more of like the normal um, kind of arrangement or like structure that we plan to do at the
Yeah,
podcast.
it would be the example of what you should expect whenever you're logging in and listening a Politdigm podcast.
Yeah, listening to about Paradigm podcast. So yeah, I think that's that's pretty much what I have to say for the introduction. So let's move on to the first thing we're going to talk about today in the podcast, which is the blog post that came out today. So we recorded podcast episodes on Mondays, and which is the same day that the blog comes out. And today, the first real article of the blog came out, which was written by Alpha. So if you want to talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so whenever we started writing the blogs, I had the small problem with creativity, which was, okay, which topic am I going to try to tackle in a blog? And then I started receiving more and more news about what was happening in France, and I cast every other idea aside and thought, no, I'm going to write about this. Because something that I've uh, at least held as a belief for a long time now is that even though America is like the poster child for police brutality, police racism, discrimination, uh, that's a reality that exists in a lot more countries than just America. We just like to talk about America a lot because America is such a great superpower. But on the 27th of June, a 17-year-old boy named Nahel was driving his car in, I cannot for the life of me pronounce that word, the name of that place.
Uh,
Help, Nanterre.
yeah,
Nanterre.
it's probably
Yeah, Nanterre. Something like that. And he was stopped by two policemen who held him at gunpoint while he was still inside the vehicle. And then when he attempted to get away, as I think would be normal whenever you have a gun pointed to your head and there's a guy talking about shooting you, he tried to get away and he was shot. And shortly after, he died.
didn't. I think he died. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he die like in like
Yeah, he was
when
still
like the
driving while he died.
yeah
He died while trying to get away.
yeah
And his two friends, which he had inside the car, uh, quickly made their escape. Now, how do we know this? There was a lot of bystanders that made at least two different videos that have been circulating the news, and you also have the two testimonies of the friends that were inside of his car. However, before all of that came to light, the police officers in question claimed that Nahel tried to run them over, and that's why he had fired in fear for his life. Also, having claimed that they were each on either side of the vehicle, as you would in a routine traffic stop. But it was not a routine traffic stop. Now, first of all, Nahel, if I'm not mistaken, did not have a driving license at all. And that's something that's been used a lot by right-wing groups to try and justify the stop that was made by the police officer. And that brings me to a point which I think pretty much sums up what I think about this. When a police officer stops you on the side of the road, he doesn't stop you because of your priors or because of your personal information. At least not normally, unless they already have a search warrant for you.
yeah
When a police officer stops you in a routine traffic stop, they stopped you either because you were doing something illegal or because they thought that it would be a good idea to stop you, basically.
yeah
Now, I'm not sure if it's the same in France, but I'm pretty sure that for a policeman to stop you, he needs to have probable cause. He needs to have a reason to stop you. And in this policeman's eyes, Nahel's ethnic background was enough for him to be worthy of being stopped and later shot because Nahel had, oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. What was
You mean?
his ethnic background? He had oh my god,
Um,
heritage.
hold on. Let me find it. Yeah, but whilst I find it, there's one thing that like you said, which is I find funny, which is like an inconsistency of like logic, which is the fact that like the policeman said that he supposedly shot him out of being afraid of getting run over. But like the funny thing is if somebody's like driving towards you and if you shoot them and you kill them, their car is not definitely not going to stop, so you're going to be run over anyways.
Yeah,
So if theoretically if that were the case, which is not what happened, if somebody's driving towards you and you don't shoot them, then they could stop the car. But if they're dead, they definitely cannot stop the car. So
yeah.
it makes no
S-
sense.
So I just rechecked it. Nahel was a French citizen of North African descent and from specifically Moroccan and Algerian.
Yeah. So
So he had North African descent. And something that we quite easily forget is that European powers invented racism,
yeah,
quite literally. Like, there was nowhere more racist than Europe a few centuries ago. A century ago, there was nowhere more racist than Europe. And what we have seen is that despite all the talks of equality and fraternity that the supposed French ideals run by, that only applies to a very strict big group, which is white men.
yeah,
If I'm not mistaken, during the French Revolution, it was quite unpopular among the women because they specifically were not mentioned as being part of the group of citizens that received those same rights.
yeah. I think the if you mind me kind of interrupting, I think the issue
Yeah,
that
sure.
happens, for example, in France, which is they're afraid of a false concept known as like the great replacement,
Oh yeah,
which is basically this idea of that white people are going to or white people most of the times it's considered white people or generally just people which are considered as the dominant
ethnic group.
ethnic like group in a country. So, for example, in guess in the case of France, would be white French people, which are they consider that they're afraid they're genuinely afraid that like the fact that there are immigrants coming to the country, the fact that there's other people generally
It's
like
poisoning the gene
yeah, it's
pool,
like poisoning the gene pool and not and just also poisoning their culture, and it's going to ruin France forever.
which
Um,
is hilarious because if you look at the concept of gene pool, the more variety you have, the better you are.
yeah.
So you don't want to restrict the gene pool.
But yeah,
So even in terms of even trying to tackle this as a scientific like proposition is just fundamentally so flawed.
yeah, but like again, to them, it's not a logical fear. It's not an actual like
Yeah.
you're not like no. The issue here is that that there's this happening, which is caused by these like like scientific facts. No, it's purely based off of biases. It's purely based off of racism and the fact that throughout their childhoods and generally stuff like that where French people are being exposed to these supposedly like bad aspects that immigrants bring and all this thing. So now there it's kind of like deeply embedded into their head this idea that anything that isn't a purebred French person, which is bullshit because there's no purebred French people. In fact, there's no purebred fucking Europeans at this point because we were going around everywhere and sleeping with each other. So there's like no, there's
Yeah.
no way that there's 100% purebred French people. And that's not just for France. That's for most countries in the world. So it's
I mean,
this.
they probably exist, but I can assure you they are not the
Yeah, they're not
majority.
they're not the majority, anyways. So this idea that like there's like white French people are going to get replaced, and that's going to be the end of the world is crazy, right? Because that's no person
So
that's like has actually any like real awareness of what's going on, or even considers these immigrants, which could be immigrants because of just general economical issues, or because of war, or purely because they can and they want to, which also happens. It's usually not the most, most people don't immigrate because they just feel like it. That's usually like a more like people that just like achieve a certain like economical growth, or they're like, now I want to go live in France because it's fancy and it's France.
yeah,
So it's people who actually view immigrants as human beings and not just this number who will bring crime or some shit, which is not true. It's They would be like, what the hell are you talking about?
yeah. I want to touch on three things from what you said. First of all, the crime remark, which I always think is hilarious because I think it's beyond proven that this is actually an argument that I had with a family member a few months ago. Your genetics have nothing to do with crimes that you may commit.
Yeah,
The What shapes you is not your genetics.
it's your social
It's
conditions.
your social conditions.
Yeah,
Like we like to think of the idea of IQ, for example.
yeah.
We think of this as something that's set at the date of birth, which is simply not true. If I'm not mistaken, a study made in Mexico uh, in the beginning of the 19th century had twins, identical twins, raised in different families, which I think is inhumane, just doing this to people because of an experiment. Uh, that one of them was extremely cared for and given all the resources that he may need to try to learn, to search for knowledge. He was incentivized to read books and try to discover more about where he was living, whilst the other twin was just left completely in the dark. And even though they were genetically the same, at the end of the experiment, they
Similar.
had different IQs levels,
Yeah,
like a big disparity between them. So the way your genetics work is extraordinary. It's a lottery of all lotteries. Like, no two human beings are the same.
yeah,
But that's not because of genetics. Genetics help, but what truly shapes you, is the experiences that you have in the forming years as a child, which are the most important years of your life. And if you spend the most important years of your life in a toxic environment where you're not cared for properly because your family can't afford to do that because they don't have enough resources, because of the social economic conditions that they find themselves in, because of discriminatory issues, and um, an outward, God damn it, I can't speak. I This pains me so much on so many levels that we can look at a human being and deem them inferior because of who their ancestors slept with,
yeah,
and because of the color of their skin, or because they have a different accent, or because they have a different main religion. And we just look at them and say, it's not about who you are and what you believe in, it's that you're different.
yeah.
And I don't respect you for it, and I think you're lesser. Because, and I want to circle back and go to racism. Race theory, in extremely broad strokes, started when a couple, actually a lot, of very rich European bourgeoisie started implementing colonies in the Americas, for example. And they needed people to work on said colonies. And they didn't want to waste money with actual workers. So they grabbed people from other countries, especially countries on the coast of the African continent, because a lot of the tribes there had the necessary knowledge that was needed to actually take care of the crops, and they enslaved them. And then they justified it to themselves as basically, oh, the reason why we're doing this and the reason why it's okay, it's because these people don't have culture. They're savages. And because they don't have a culture, they are inferior to us. And we are showing them the good ways of the European people. There was literally a medical condition that was invented to try and justify why a slave would try to run away from his master. And it was
Fuck.
classified as a mental illness. I will tell you the name right now.
All right, while you do that, I want to kind of circle back to the thing you said about, or well, technically I said about the social conditions the person lives in and why like people mistake, the acts that somebody does for who they
Yeah,
are
sorry, I
physically.
just found it.
What's it called?
Uh, Drapetomania, which was invented in 1851 uh, by an American physician called Samuel A. Cartwright, which supposedly hypnotized the enslaved Africans, leading them to flee.
Oh
So
fuck.
let's just circle back. These people were, and I'm sorry for the expression, were so far up their asses that they thought that the only reason why a human being would try to flee captivity was
Yeah,
because he was mentally ill. This is a type of people that we're talking about.
it's like
And
it's like that one me with like what's his name? I forget the name of the actor, but it's like the guy who's like shoots like he shoots somebody behind him like on a chair, and he's like, "What happened? Why is he dead? Why did
someone
this why
shut no.
this why did this happen?" He's like still holding the gun. He's like,
Yeah,
what's going on? It's like
I didn't do it.
why would this person I enslaved who did not consent to what I'm doing right now? Why did they want to leave? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So that's the point there at which got in history. And
Yeah.
at this point, the French Revolution had got underway a few decades back. So, and after that, things thankfully started to die down as more and more countries started to ban slavery. But it's easy to ban an institution. It's almost impossible to eradicate an ideal.
Yeah.
And our modern times are a testament to that. Because currently we live in a majorly democratic American European societies. But slowly and slowly, we have seen the rise of far right leaders in a lot of very powerful countries
Yeah.
because democracy and democratic regimes have failed the people. And so, once again, we are repeating history and turning back to fascism
Yeah.
because it's easy to point to a group of people that you already deem inferior and tell them, yeah, you're right. They are the problem. You're poor, it's the Jews. They have all the money. It's not because we literally banned them from any type of work that wasn't economics related, it's because they are stealing it from you.
Yeah.
Oh, you have a problem? You see that black man over there? Yeah, he's trying to replace you. He's taking away your women and your job. Go beat him up. So, when a cop in Nanterre fires his gun upon a 17-year-old boy, a French 17-year-old boy with Northern African descent, he's doing nothing but enact the fantasies of the far right extremist groups, which is to purge the society of the unclean. And I feel filthy just saying that.
Yeah.
Because you are looking. at a whole human being that has emotions, feelings,
Yeah.
memories, and
A
experiences, and
family.
saying, yeah, you are not that. You are lesser
You are a
because I
creature.
deemed you so. I have to share this with you. I think I've already told you this personally. But do you know why the Nazis considered the Iranian race superior?
The Aryan, by the way. No,
Aryan race, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, this is
I'm
gonna
being
sound
honest.
wacky, but I'm just gonna double check the guy that wrote the book. Uh,
Honestly, but I don't know
so
why they
the Nazis basically had the belief that the Aryan, I don't know,
Aryan.
it's the Aryan race was superior because they believed that ancient aliens, I'm not making this up, ancient aliens came to Earth, founded Atlantis, and then Atlantis fell, went down to the sea, and the Atlanteans migrated to Northern Europe and intermingled with the Northern Franken people, and then they spawned the Aryan people.
What the actual fuck did? Okay, that's yeah.
Now, let me, yeah, master race. The Nazi theorist Alfred Rosenberg believed that the Nordic race was a descendant from Proto-Indo-Europeans, who he believed that prehistorically dealt on the northern German plain and may have ultimately originated on the lost island of Atlantis. Now, Alfred Rosenberg was a Baltic German Nazi theorist and ideologue, and was first introduced to Adolf Hitler by Friedrich Eckart, something like that. And he had several important posts in the Nazi government. In fact, he was the head of the Office of Foreign Affairs during the entire rule of Hitler,
That explains a lot.
and led the Rosenberg Bureau, an official Nazi body for cultural policy and surveillance. So this was not a small fry. He was the head of the Reich Ministry for the occupied Eastern territories. So someone that Hitler held in high regard. And his beliefs was that ancient aliens came to found Atlantis, and that the Aryan race spawned from Atlantean people going out of Atlantis and having children with proto-Northern European tribes. I want you to take that in for a second. Whenever you go back and log into the History Channel and see ancient alien theories, the Nazis started it. Okay? Just take that in for a second.
I don't know if I want. I don't know if I want to have that in my
This
mind.
is the type of people you deal with.
Yeah,
They are not based on logic. They are based on
on fiction, literally,
spite,
like
on
basically.
fiction and spite and fear and hate, because their lives are so miserable
I didn't.
that they need someone to blame.
I did not know the Nazis had lore. Honestly, that's something I was not. That's something I never thought I would come out of my mind, out of
There
my
is
mouth.
a YouTube
Nazi lore.
channel that I
The fuck.
absolutely adore. It's called Mini Minute Man, a lot of M's, and it's an archaeology based channel. And the host, who's called Milo, is just a joy of a person. And he said that during one of his videos when he was talking about a Netflix show called Ancient Apocalypse, which is just absolutely awful, where they have a lot of ancient alien theories presented by a guy named Graham Hancock, which is a sociologist and proto-scientist and not an archaeologist. And he said that thing about the Nazis started ancient alien series, and I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no way, I gotta check this out. Ain't no way.
Fuck is this?
And for my dismay, it's true. So, let's go back to France.
Yeah.
We basically have a country that is extremely unhappy with their government, as you can see by their rights over the past few years of Macron's rule. And to top it all off, we have a country that has a lot of cultural diversity and a lot of underlying racist ideologies that have just been made extremely public for the world to see.
Yeah.
And how do you answer to that? In a couple of ways. First of all, you start a crowdfunding for the cop that shot the guy and raise 1.3 million euros.
That
I
that was
I
as
am
of
this.
1 week ago, so I don't even
That
know.
was 1 week ago. I am disgusted to even think about that.
I don't even
That's
know how much it is now, honestly.
let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Uh, then you, President Macron, declare that the violence seen in the riots is a result of video games and Snapchat making our teenage generation lose contact with society. And third of all, you start implementing rules to restrict and monitor internet and phone use and start banning peaceful protests.
Yeah.
While in the midst of all of this, there are legit assassination attempts being carried out by gangs and far right extremist groups that are taking the advantage of the riots to try to take out some of the farther left leaning political members of French politics while using the guise of the protest, the peaceful protest, to do it all. From destroying public transports to looting small businesses. And
Burning
those are not
libraries.
protesters, those are anarchists.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of issues there, and I kind of wanted to talk back about the thing I was gonna say before, but then you cut me off. But I mean, I technically
Sorry.
cut you off. But it's the thing about like that. What people don't understand is that these people who are deemed to be criminals and all these things about because of their ethnic background or because their color of their skin, they don't do that directly because of the color of their skin. And whilst that, out of context that might sound like, "Wait, what the fuck are you going to say right now?" What I'm trying to say is that society is built in a way where people with a certain color of skin, like the 17-year-old who died, are put in a social situation where they have less access to things, where they have less access to education, where they have less access to economic growth, where they
To
have
health, even. To
health
healthcare.
even, and all these different things. And it's been shown over and over again when people don't have access to these things that a lot of the times they turn to crime to be able to one feed their families or themselves, and sometimes out of genuine like anger and just feeling of injustice towards them and their people, they will sometimes act upon that anger, which I'm not saying is correct, by the way, and they will do horrendous shit, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the people who see that from the outside, which is again in this case white French people, see that and go, they're doing this because of the color of the skin, without realizing that they're doing this not because of the color of the skin, but because that society has been so unfair towards people of that color of skin, where that they are more that the probability that they will do this type of stuff is higher than a white person, because a white person
Yeah.
will do the exact same shit. It's just that they have a better living conditions, so it just doesn't happen as often, or isn't also as covered as often, which is another issue because people don't care that much about when that stuff happens. And when I say that it doesn't happen as much, isn't entirely true, because when you have a, for example, in the case of the United States, when you have a population that is primarily white, then obviously the most people that commit crimes are going to be white people. I think that's pretty obvious, right? If there's more people of one skin color, then they're going to do that thing more because there's just more of them. So saying that black people in the US commit more crimes is just wrong. That's just there's
You have to look at it per capita.
yeah, like it's just
And
straight up
also,
wrong.
I wanted to uh, give an example, which was a extremely good analogy that I've used in conversations before. That was given by a lady on the height of the Black Lives Matter movement. Imagine that you are playing a game of Monopoly, and for 40 turns, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Your income was never given to you, and you are stuck in home base. And then, for another 50 years, you are allowed to move. But if you try to do and start raising your money, like with what happened in Tulsa, it gets burned to the ground. And then, after that, after 45 turns of not being able to do anything besides move around for 5 turns, you are asked to be on par with the other player.
Yeah. And you simply can't,
There
unfortunately.
is no possible way unless you're given extra support,
Yeah.
which, guess not, it's not given. It's not given because the people in power don't care,
Yeah, and
or
even people
because
who aren't in power then see giving these people
and
these helps
it's
as
unjust. Why you're giving it to
yeah.
these savages? They're not doing anything. Like, I want to talk about the problem with immigration. I had a talk with a family friend of mine a couple of days ago when we started talking about first we started talking about the police, which is a whole other topic, and then we started talking about anti-immigrant sentiment, which was a good talk because that person was the owner of a woman, is the owner of a business, and she has a lot of employees that are immigrants, and she's had them constantly over the years, and she doesn't have any problem with it, even though she's being called out by some not too pleasant customers about it, which is once again disgraceful for those people. So a common fear and argument used on the far right groups is that the immigrants are here to steal your jobs, which I think is hilarious because, yeah, for example, here in Portugal, you might get a call from a call center or go to a shop, and the people that are attending you are Brazilian.
Yeah.
Or if you're having Uber Eats or some kind of delivery, most people are, for example, from Middle Eastern countries
Yeah, like
or
most
even Asian.
public service like
Yeah.
uh jobs, like anything that has to do with serving a person, has to do with like being at a restaurant, at a supermarket, any type of delivery, etc. It's usually people who are immigrants who do those
Now,
jobs.
let's think about it for a second. Is it because they're stealing our jobs, or it's because
They're the
people
only
are
ones
too
willing to do it.
proud to take them?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not because they're taking their jobs. It's because those people need a job and they can't be picky about it. And that's
Exactly.
they're the only people who are willing to do those jobs. And then when people see that, are like, why is it every time I go to my local supermarket, I see a bunch of people, a bunch of immigrants everywhere. It's like, is that nobody from this fucking country is willing to do those jobs, and somebody has to do them. Otherwise, you won't be able to go to that supermarket and get shit. So
Imagine being hungry and you are given an apple and you say, "No, it's not enough for me." And then someone else that is starving is given an apple and they eat it and you are livid because they took your apple.
yeah, when you denied it at the first place.
Do you know how stupid that sounds?
Yeah,
That's beyond stupidity. Besides that, there's also the argument that, oh, they are stealing our social benefits programs. They got a bunch of children and they get social benefits for it and they don't work. That might be true. Native people do that too.
yeah.
And what do you want to do? Get immigrants in the country without any economical support and then bitch about it when they are homeless because they can't get a job and they can't pay their rent because they have no support from the state and you're just aggravating the problem?
Yeah, I see a lot of people being like, "Oh, governments need to prioritize the people who live in the country already and not people coming from the outside. But
Which is,
anybody,
I'm sorry for cutting you out, but I just want to say this little remark. Portuguese people immigrated in thousands during the second half of the 20th century because we had a dictatorship and people fled the country. And people from France, for example, took us in. A lot of Portuguese men were doormen and working in construction sites, and a lot of Portuguese women were maids and housemaids because those were the jobs that were available.
yeah,
And now we cry about it when immigrants from other countries have those same jobs in our countries.
yeah. No, but like, there's a lot of people who are like, no, like social benefit programs need to focus more on like natives and people who live already in the country, and less on people who come from the outside, and that are basically these outsiders, right? And I personally, I don't agree with that. I think that everybody should be equally equal I fuck equally focused on, because they're all people, period. Doesn't matter where they're from. Obviously, if they need help, then they should get that help regardless who they are.
Yeah.
But this, then again, there's like back to that racist idea of like, no, like we are worth more because we are from our country and they are outsiders, so fuck them. I need to be helped first, which is ridiculous.
It's such
I
a caveman mentality, like,
Yeah,
Ooga booga, the other tribe is not good. Ooh, get
it's
out of my
it's
cave.
back to like nationalist like ideas of like, I am superior because I'm from my country and you're from another country coming to mine, so therefore you are less than me, which
It's like
is
the
insane.
image of like two identical cities, like separated by a river. It's like our proud ideals, their barbaric ideals, our proud nation, their crude and savage nation, or something like
I'll
that.
be honest,
Which
I have no
the
idea what you're
only
talking about.
okay, it's an analogy. The only thing
All
that
right.
separates us is tribe mentality, literally,
Yeah.
which is hilarious whenever you're trying to claim that you're the superior ethnic group and you stick to the mentality of a caveman,
Yeah.
which probably is how high your RQ can go. But
Like, to me, I've never been a person who is I think one of the things that happens a lot in Portugal and a lot of other European countries, and I guess in America in a way too, but it's in a kind of different, if you want to say, market, or in a different part of life, which is like in Europe, we have our like football teams and stuff like that. And that's like ground zero of like insane nationalist people who are like, we support our football teams, like
it's basically
just
like a
like
religion.
it's like they're total fanatics. Like it's insane shit that I personally could never do, because I don't I barely feel proud to be human when I look around me. How could I be proud of a nation, just a nation? I can't even be proud of the entire human race, much less a certain group of them. I felt
And even
it's
here in Portugal, there are three main football teams, and one of them lost the game. So their fans, like 60 of them, went to their club and beat them up.
Yeah, and it's just like violent shit happening. It's like, holy, like you guys have nothing better in life to worry about than some bunch of, I don't even know how many men it is. Is it like 10 or some shit? I don't know. I know nothing about football. Uh
It's like 20.
I don't know. A bunch of men, a bunch of sweaty men running around fucking kicking balls with their feet. It's like, if that's the only thing you're worried about, to the point where you're able to commit aggravated assault on people,
I
it's
have
like,
seen
what are
Smash
you doing?
tournaments more civilized than this.
Yeah, it's like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, oh my god, I don't get it. I don't get it. But anyways, I think it's a good time to move on to our next topic, which is, I guess, more me focused.
Yeah.
Because the first half of the podcast has been you, just you talking.
My
Uh
bad.
so now we're more on to technology, because it's something that I enjoy, and kind of
Technology. Oh my god. I
kind
love the
of the
field.
politics around something going on right now, which is that, was it, I think it was on the 7th, if I'm not wrong, the 7th of July, Instagram Threads came out, which is a competitor from Instagram to Twitter. and a bunch of funny shit has been going on. Funny and sad in a way, like Elon Musk calling Mark Zuckerberg a cuck. Like literally, this is not something I made
Really?
up. Yeah, this actually happened. If you go
Oh
right
my
now
god, that's
to if you
hilarious.
if you go right now to Google and search up Elon Musk tells Mark Zuckerberg he's a cuck, you'll find
Give
a
me a
tweet,
second.
and then after that replies to himself saying that I think at this point we should do a literal dick measuring contest. Like Elon literally suggested that they measure each other's penises, and then whoever has the biggest wins something. I don't know what's like maybe the winner gets to keep the Twitter. I don't know what's going on there, but it's some insane shit, right? And
Wait. Oh my god, it's true.
he found it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's real.
Oh,
But basically, what's going on is Elon bought Twitter. I think Alpha, if you could do the research as I'm talking about this real quick. But I think it was like in November of last year. Well, technically, he didn't buy it. He was forced to buy it by a law firm. I honestly don't know the whole story about
so
it.
he basically said for a meme that he would buy Twitter for an exorbitant amount.
Yeah,
And then he was like, haha, JK, JK, JK. Oh, no, no, my friend. You've already signed this thing. You
yeah.
gotta buy it now. So he bought it for like the quadruple value
He
of
bought it for
the
like
platform.
yeah, he bought it for like an immense amount of money, and so
44
for
billion
yeah,
deal.
and since then, Twitter has lost, I believe, 2/3 of their value, which is crazy. That is not good. And honestly, I kind of like that's happening because it's like you
Yeah.
deserve this, but not the people who work at Twitter.
It was
They don't
actually
deserve
on
it.
April. It started on April 2022 and was concluded
Damn, really?
in
Shit.
October
Uh,
2022.
that was that long. Holy shit. Anyways,
Yeah.
basically, what happens is Elon buys Twitter. He gets there, and the first thing he does is fire a bunch of people who are related to um, like the moderation team. Basically, the people who are connected to dealing with racism on the platform and a bunch of all these different things and like misinformation. They're
Yeah, because
all
his
fired.
promise was to make
Yeah, free speech.
free speech. Yeah.
So like the usage of the N word went up like was it's like any exuberant amount of like it's a giant percentage. Like it went up immensely in like the first couple of days. And then Elon is like, nah, it's not racist. There's nothing wrong with Twitter. And like this is like from an interview he did many months
Basically,
later.
I don't think
Uh
you've ever watched the Maxor video on the summarized Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, but it's that video where the clip of uh nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with the source? The
yeah.
source is that I made it the fuck up. Okay, that's the video where it comes, and basically the senator is like being Elon saying, "I
Yeah.
want a future of equality and freedom of speech, a world where I can say the N word."
Yeah, it's like he's deranged. Anyways, but going back to what happened is he keeps firing a bunch of people. Basically, anybody that disagrees with his view for Twitter or disagrees with his political views, etc., that works in on Twitter or in Twitter, whatever, or X Corp now because he changed the name of the company, gets fired. I don't like Mark Zuckerberg either. I don't like the Zuck either. That's I gotta make this clear.
It's like being
But
choose. It's like choosing you want to be stabbed or shot.
it's so obviously Mark Zuckerberg with all the bad things with all his dumb assery of the Zuck, he knows what he is doing when it comes to wanting to have more businesses or stuff like that. He knows how the capitalist machine works and knows what he has to do to have success in it. Although with the whole VR thing and the metaverse thing, it does show that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but whatever.
I'm gonna be
Although
honest. The big difference between Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk is that Mark Zuckerberg is actually smart.
Yeah, yeah, I guess a little bit. He's
He's
definitely
he's
smarter.
not a good human being, but
He's
he
definitely
has a high
smarter,
IQ.
but he still has like these moments where you're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Anyways, that's not what
He's evil.
he's evil. He is an evil man. He is a rich billionaire, and therefore he is evil.
Yeah, cry about it.
But basically, the thing is, Mark saw an opportunity. He saw that Twitter is dying. It has from like basically from predictions from analysts, Twitter only has a couple of months left economically until they're like basically bankrupt. Although I have been reading a bunch of people saying that for a while now, it still hasn't happened. So I don't know. Don't quote me on that. So basically, he saw an opportunity to make his own platform to rival Twitter. Now, obviously, at the beginning, I guess the big closest rival to Twitter was Facebook, but now Facebook has kind of evolved into its own thing, and it just isn't really.
Meta.
It isn't really no Facebook, the actual platform, the actual
Ah,
social media
damn it.
platform, isn't really a good competitor for Twitter anymore. So he saw the opportunity and made something called Threads. Although there had been already an app called Threads from Instagram, which was basically like a messenger app for Instagram.
It
Don't
didn't
know.
work out.
I didn't work out. Basically, like currently, like Instagram has these things like called notes in your message area, and like people who had Instagram threads back in the day with the original Instagram threads has had that for years. I used to have it, so I had it for a long time. So it isn't really that much of a new thing. They just kind of condensed it into one place. So they made Instagram Threads. Now Instagram Threads has is I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting app. I am sort of excited in the sense that I am curious to see how it will impact Twitter and how everything will come from there. I personally have some kind of issues with Instagram Threads, but that's not really like in this when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about like ethical issues or stuff. There's definitely ethical issues with Meta in general, but I'm talking about just like pure features and stuff like that. But a thing that I find interesting is then like the discourse between Elon and Mark, because now that was the cuck thing. Elon wants to sue Mark for hiring people that he fired, and that it's unfair that he's hiring people that he fired to make a clone of his app or his.
Again, let's go back to the Apple analogy.
It's like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like, are you dumb? Like
Are
you,
you high? Ever since he went on the Joe Rogan podcast
yeah, like
and
that weed permanently broke his brain. So it's like, it's dumb because Elon is like he is like the biggest fan. He's like the biggest fangirl of like the capitalist system, and yet whenever it bites his ass, he doesn't like it, which is funny. It's like it's funny to see because it's like what do you think is going to happen?
love hypocrisy.
It's like what do you think is going to happen? You fire a bunch of software engineers, and then you're surprised that your competitor hires them to make a competitor for your platform. Like that is like Catalyst 101 of like of how to do shit. Like are you like it's
And
crazy.
because he wanted people to touch grass, shake my head.
And then like and now whilst all of this is happening, whilst I think it wasn't Elon himself obviously who like filed for a lawsuit or some shit like that, or I don't know the whole specifics of it, but there's somebody sent basically a letter signed by Elon saying that it's unfair, blah 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 blah. And then, whilst all of this is happening, Elon is being sued by the people that he fired for firing them under like no cause and all that stuff of like workers' rights, which hypothetically, or not all of them, but obviously, but there are still some of the people that he's now complaining about working for Meta, which is like I find that funny of like that idea that he's like angry at the fact that that he fired them and now they're working for his competitor, but then he's also being like essentially sued for being a shit boss. It's I don't know, I just find it ironic, and I honestly find it really funny. But yeah, it's such a dumb situation, and I find Elon like what Elon does like lately he's done. No, I mean he's never really done anything that's like revolutionary. There's a lot of people who think that he's like this revolutionary thinker and stuff like
He's
that. And no,
not. He's
he's not.
literally stolen projects from other people and used his
Yeah,
name on
like
top.
he basically like in case you didn't know, like Tesla isn't his, like or wasn't his.
And neither was PayPal.
He basically hijacked these like ideas and like was like, oh, these are mine now. And even when he starts a company like SpaceX, which is his thing, wasn't started by anybody else, and he's like, deemed as like
It's
this,
going great, guys.
and he's like basically figured as this like space engineering crazy man who has like these crazy ideas. Like yeah, like all he does is go, hey, I want to do this thing, figure it the fuck out. That's all he
Yeah.
does. Like he doesn't
You ever
sit
seen
down
a?
and actually do anything. He doesn't know anything about space like craft engineering. He knows nothing about sending people to Mars. He knows nothing about that. He just had this idea that I want to do this. He has a insane amount of disposable income to put into these dumbass projects and then proceeds to do it. And when he does it in the worst possible way, which for example is a good example of what he did with SpaceX, which is promise Ukraine to have free internet through SpaceX's
Yeah,
link thing, fuck Starlink thing, and then
but
it
now you
goes,
gotta pay for
and then it
it.
goes, hey, you're gonna pay for it, and Ukraine's like, we can't pay for it. It's like, oh, you can't pay for it, then okay, then the United States government is gonna pay for it, and you're they're like,
No, no, no.
what?
He cut out the
Yeah.
service before.
So it's like,
So
what are you doing?
the critical Ukrainian defense communications went down because Mr. Musk wasn't getting paid.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, what are you like? It's just insane. It's like it's just how greedy can you be?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Like I wanna touch on what was I thinking about?
Don't know.
It's probably something good, but I forgot.
It's usually the best ideas are just the ones we forget.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
great idea then. Wait,
yeah,
give me a second. I'll try to retrace the train of thought. We were talking before we talked about Ukraine, what we were talking about.
about Zuck and Elon. But
Yeah, but like specifically.
like the fact that he's like getting fucked over by his own mistake, essentially, or by his own dumb
Yeah. Okay.
actions.
You ever watched the movie from Netflix called The Glass Onion?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So as you know, basic plots, millionaire
Yeah,
that has stupid ideas, but everyone tells him he's a genius because he's a millionaire
yeah.
and he's such a great innovator. But he was the one that stole.
That whole movie is making fun of
Yeah,
Elon, basically.
yeah, yeah. But he just stole his partner's ideas and then
Yeah, claimed it as his own.
got her out of the company when she didn't agree to one of his ideas.
Yeah,
That's basically it. Uh, Millionaires do stupid, idiotic stuff, and everyone hails them as heroes because they have money. Because they have money, they must be successful. No, they're not. They're either extremely lucky, not good people, just
yeah, like
horrible human beings that cut corner to make income,
yeah,
or were born into wealth.
which is the case of Elon,
Yeah.
which is daddy's emerald mines and shit.
Even Mark Zuckerberg, which you might say was the founder of Facebook, literally had his best friend and and two twins from Harvard
Yeah.
suing him because he stole the property.
I mean, you can't forget that like Mark made Facebook whilst in Harvard, and the fact
Yeah,
that he was already in Harvard means that he was already some way like in
yeah.
like he had some sort of like I don't know about his like story when it comes to like his parents or if he's like a nepo baby. I have no fucking clue. I'll be honest, but
I don't think he was. I
I don't
think
think
he
he is,
might
but
have.
like again, if
Yeah.
anybody knows anything about the US and knows about getting into Harvard, they know that you can't just get into Harvard if you're a nobody. You need to have some sort of connections or you need to be this insane scholar.
Extremely smart.
Yeah, you need to be so insane that like you're somehow they're able to overlook your social conditions. And I'm pretty sure that Mark wasn't either of those. I
But he
mean,
was.
well,
What I
not
know
the
is
second
that
one.
he was in terms of like computing and algorithms. He was basically a genius, I think.
Yeah.
And he came up with a whole process with a friend of him based on a chess algorithm after he got dumped by his girlfriend because he was a dick.
Yeah. Like he came up
Which
basically
is
with
just okay. So why did you make this platform? So I wanted to screw with my girlfriend because she called me a dick and an
yeah.
asshole. So
He
I
made Facebook out of
made
spite basically.
yeah, he made Facebook out of spite. And Facebook was before Facebook came a platform where you would rate
Yeah,
people,
girls on in
girls
Harvard.
in Harvard based on their hotness,
Yeah,
which is just such a scumbag thing to do
serial misogynist in the fucking midst. Jesus Christ. No,
because he wrote a blog post where he like insulted his girlfriend, especially like her bust size, if I'm not mistaken, and the fact she wore like push-up bras or
Yeah,
some or
could
like
be. I
bras
think
with
yeah, I think that was what
hose,
it is.
and then went like, wait, hot people, I want to do something. Hey, you, who was played by Andrew Garfield in the movie. Uh, remember that chess algorithm you were using?
Yeah, let's use that for this crazy
Yeah.
unnecessary thing. But yeah, another thing, like just to end off because we're coming up to an hour, talking about crazy billionaires. This is an old story, but talking about crazy billionaires, and since we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg and Elon, we must talk about the last part, the last part of the
The man,
trifecta,
the myth,
the
the
myth,
legend, the boldness.
the baldness, fucking Jeff Bezos, who at some point decided that he had enough money or had too much money, which is funny because if you know anything about Amazon and Bezos, you know that that employees of Amazon are in horrendous
Yeah.
conditions
He
where they
looked at the
have to
unions and
piss
said, cringe.
in bottles inside their trucks and are extremely underpaid. And so, not Zuck, Bezos, Jeffrey Bezos goes, I have too much money. What am I going to do with it? And instead of paying his workers what they deserve, no, he decided, hey, I'm going to give it to charity, which, giving to charity is a noble cause. But you need to keep in mind that, he's still not paying his workers. So what the hell? And then he does an interview, which I don't remember who it was, where he says that doing charity is really hard because it's really hard to give away money to a charity. And I'm just thinking, what are you talking about? Spending money is the easiest thing ever. Making money is usually the hard thing, but spending money or giving money away
I'm pretty
is
sure he meant like, oh, my prized possession.
no, no, I don't even. No, he meant like apparently. I think what he ended up doing was like give it to Dolly Parton or something like that, or
I
like
am not
or
familiar
like
with
a
Dolly
or
Parton.
like a charity that Dolly Parton was part of. But basically, like he's like talking about it as if like, oh yeah, like giving my money away to a charity was like the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like it's crazy. Was as I, a person who has donated to a charity in the past, I know it's extremely easy because all you do is you go to their website, you go to a donation button, you put the amount, and then you confirm the payment. That's all you do, right? So I don't know what he's talking about. I don't get it. As one of the richest man in the world who has insane amount of money to give away, to the point where it's where he's should be taxed the fuck out of, just so that that wealth is distributed to again to maybe his workers and the rest of the people,
Yeah.
is so is so utterly confused when it comes to giving money to the less fortunate. He's like, how do I do this? How do I do nice things?
How do I spend my money?
Yeah, he's like, no, he's not even spending. He's like, the way that he's talking about it is like, how do you do good things with money? Like as if he's literally has no idea of how to do a good thing with money. He's like, how is this possible? I
Yeah.
don't I don't. It's like it's so foreign for him. It's like, what is
What
happening?
is donation?
What is this thing called
What do you mean the plebs
donate
need money?
Tion? Donate Tion? Am I seeing this right? Am I is this how this goes? It's crazy,
What
man.
is this? Is this some peasant Joe I'm too rich to understand?
It's like it's insane because like these people, like these billionaires, right, who have financially the most influence in the world.
You're right, they're not people, they're billionaires.
They are the most out of touch motherfuckers known to mankind. And then they are the people that we look up to being these examples of what a person in society would be when they're barely in society to begin with.
They are the top dogs and they are despicable.
It's crazy. Like, and again, it's like you said before. These people are not billionaires because they worked hard every day and they were on that hustle grind set
Yeah, because it
that
doesn't work,
that
because
that was
society is not fair.
was those cringy ass like TikTok things, like the grind set where you gotta wake up every
Yeah.
day at 5
At
a.m. and
4
then
a.m., go for a run, eat eggs without baking them on Wall
yeah, you
Street.
need to you need
Bunch
to
of
put
punks.
whole eggs into your blender and eat it with just uncooked egg with the shell on it, and then you gotta it's like pure protein, and then you gotta do all this, and then by after 3 months you'll be a millionaire. It's like, no, that does not work. That does not happen. These are people who, for that to be able to happen, you need to be so incredibly lucky. You need to
Yeah.
everything, all the stars and planets in the fucking universe need to align for you so that that can happen. And that doesn't happen to the commoner.
And usually that only happens because you're a piece of shit.
And usually that only happens because they're also already in a financial situation where they're already more successful, because the people who they target with these crazy ideas are people who, guess what, are less economically fortunate than them and are genuinely people who are sick of being in really bad conditions and will do anything to get out of them. So when you see this magical glowing unicorn creature who looks literally like a unicorn because they're like their clothes and cars are so fucking bright and unnecessary.
And there's so much Botox.
Yeah, they're like
So much.
they look like a mythical creature that shouldn't exist. Uh, that these people will follow these crazy ideas because again they are desperate for a way out, and they're basically, these are like essentially like they're like vultures, like grasping onto these less fortunate people, being like I it's like giving them hope, and then these people spend so much money and so much the last amounts of money they had, the time, the little time they have into these pointless crypto scams and all these different stuff, and then by the end of it, the guy who made this magical course or these crazy videos are way richer now, whilst the
Yeah.
people who supposedly they're helping are in even
It,
worse
yeah.
conditions that they started off in, and I find that horrendous.
Andrew Tate.
What? Oh, Andrew Tate.
Andrew
Yeah,
Tate.
it's like Andrew Tate out here saying that he's helping people and that he is doing
Getting
all
out of
this
them
shit.
brokies.
But then
Yeah.
he's like flexing on podcasts that he's making tremendous amount of, is like, yeah, like my course costs $50 and I have 10,000 members, and it's $50 per month. So what, you're making $50,000 per month by promising people that they're gonna make money. That is a giant scam.
The
Like,
only like the only job careers that I think that where success and money, you need skill to do them and to achieve them, are in the
sports.
music industry and sports.
Yeah, like it's not just, I
And
mean,
even
yeah,
then,
there's gonna be those like couple nepo babies just sprinkled in there.
and
Like
not
I,
just nepo babies, you can be the best of all, but
yeah,
if you don't have the right conditions behind you, you are so screwed.
like just to end off, this is the last thing I want to say in the podcast. Sorry for cutting you
Yeah.
off, but it is getting a bit long. But like just to end this off, speaking about like sports, there's only one sport I watch which I enjoy, which is Formula One, and this is a quick little thing. There's this guy, right, who owns the Aston Martin Formula One team and Aston Martin, the actual car company, right? And guess what? His son is a Formula One driver who famously is pretty bad. And in fact, just yesterday, as of recording this, there was a race in England where he had an accident where he drove into somebody, and then
Jesus.
he's also statistically, the when you like compare teammates to like team in between teammates, like the discrepancy in terms of points, he is the person who has the biggest discrepancy to his teammate, which means that he is a, I mean, obviously to be in Formula One you still have to be a good driver, so he is technically a good driver, but comparing to the people around him and other
He's not
drivers
a good
and
race driver.
other drivers who are basically in the backseat, who are just watching because they don't have a team to drive for because other people are taking their spot. This nepo baby, this nepo baby who literally has the same name as his father because his father is senior and he is junior, right? That's how bad it is.
That's so narcissistic. I
Does
couldn't.
does jack shit every race weekend, and it's just there chilling. It's so annoying because he's not that great of a driver. He might be a good person. I don't know obviously how he is personally, but when it comes to like him being in Formula One, he's the biggest nepo baby imaginable, and everybody makes fun of him. It's pretty funny.
Yo, speaking of races, I just want to do one little comment going back to the immigrants things. So I think it was in 2019. There was a race in motorsports in America, which was basically with dirt bikes. I'm forgetting the name.
No
Uh,
clue.
it wasn't enduro. It was like a dirt bike circuit, and there was a race. And there was a rider from Sweden who missed the opportunity to race in a race in Europe, and then he just said, "Why not? I'll go to America and race with them. It's not gonna count for anything." Or, but yeah, whatever. And he wiped the floor with them. And you wanna know what was the top comment on the picture of the podium?
What?
Go back to your third world country, faggot.
Ah,
He's from
right.
Sweden.
Yeah.
Third world country.
No, you mean top three countries, like in the world, like statistically?
I love America.
It's like America is barely a first world country. Let's not forget that. They're the least developed country that exists. They are literally what separates every developed country and country in development
They
in the
still
world.
use slavery in prisons.
Yeah, and they literally are like, no, these Europeans, they're worse. No, it's like, what are
I
you
gotta
doing?
admit, I'm kind of hard art.
What? Oh, okay. Don't. That was what the hell, Alpha. That's not a
Yeah,
good way to end the podcast. Anyways, so, I mean, but that is how we're gonna end it.
there
Uh,
it is. That do be how we ending.
so don't forget to check out our Patreon. We still don't have any supporters, which is fine. Obviously, no, we're not like that one Twitch streamer who's like, you need to donate to us, or you're all.
Me money. I need to buy feet pics.
It's like what? No, wait, whoa, whoa, Alpha, what? No, but
I
like,
have 5 feet finder account.
do you remember like one twit like that one woman like that one Twitch streamer who was like, you
Give
guys,
me more tips.
it's like, give me more tip. It's just $5. If you can't give me $5, then what are you even doing? I work hard as hell. It's like, but you are in your room for hours doing nothing. What do you mean you're working hard? No,
And
you're not.
she's a and she's a politician, like
Was she
supposedly from left.
really?
Yeah, center left.
No, you're thinking of the different person. You're thinking of a different. I know who you're talking about now, but it's not the
Ah,
same. But I mean,
right.
there is. Yeah, you got it right. There is like another one. No, there was. You're thinking about a trans streamer who was flexing that she was like a she had some sort of power on something. But I don't know. That's not the point. Anyways, yeah. Don't if you want. Don't forget to support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon, you'll have access to our private Discord server where we will be where you can submit questions for the podcast Q&A, which will be in at the end of every episode. That's why we're now also advertising it. So make sure to do that. Make sure to check out our blog, which will be coming out next week on Monday. Make sure to, if you haven't watched the first episode, which is basically like a more philosophical episode where we go in more into like the idea of what Politdigm is and all that.
Yeah, and our own personal beliefs.
Exactly. And is there anything you want to say, Alpha? Anything
No,
that I'm
just thank
forgetting?
you for sticking with us.
Is there anything I'm forgetting? I don't think there is. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.